Paul had driven along that familiar stretch of road earlier in the day, but at the time, his mind was preoccupied with the heavy traffic and the clock ticking toward his upcoming appointment. He was running late, and as he hurried to make up for lost time, something caught his eye, a glint in the bushes just off the side of the road. It was shiny, but his mind quickly shifted back to his meeting, leaving the curiosity about the object in the back of his mind. He had no time to investigate, not with a looming deadline. Later that afternoon, on his way back, the memory of that shiny object tugged at Paul's thoughts again. His meeting was over, and with the traffic now much lighter, he no longer felt rushed. This time, without the pressure of getting somewhere on time, he allowed himself to slow down. He passed the spot once again, and the glint in the distance was still there. The sun reflected off what seemed like a box, but Paul couldn't shake the feeling that there was something unusual about it. He decided to turn around and check it out, curiosity slowly gaining the upper hand. Paul pulled his car to the side of the road and got out, feeling slightly ridiculous. The idea of investigating a random shiny object on the side of the road felt silly, but something compelled him to keep going. As he approached the source of the reflection, the shiny object took the shape of a metal cage. That was unexpected, but it wasn't until he was standing directly over it that the full, horrific truth revealed itself. Inside the cage, huddled together, were several small puppies, their tiny bodies pressed against each other for warmth and comfort. Paul's stomach turned at the sight. There were too many of them crammed into the small space, their little faces looking up at him, confused and terrified. Some were lying limply at the bottom of the cage, barely moving. Paul felt a wave of nausea wash over him, knowing that these pups had been abandoned, left to die by someone heartless enough to dump them like trash. The lock on the cage was secured with a zip tie, and without wasting any time, Paul ran back to his car to grab his emergency toolbox. His hands trembled as he fumbled for the pliers, and with a quick snip, the zip tie was severed, freeing the door of the cage. But then came the next challenge. As much as Paul wanted to take the puppies with him, he quickly realized that letting them loose would be a disaster. There were so many of them, and without the cage, they would scatter and be difficult to control. As much as it hurt to leave them inside for a while longer, Paul knew it was safer for them to stay put until proper help could arrive. The puppies were a mix of confusion and fear. They tumbled over each other as Paul reached in to give them some comfort, but they were clearly traumatized, recoiling from his touch. One little black puppy, however, stood out from the rest. The tiny pup, bolder than the others, stood up against the cage door and wagged its tail weakly as Paul scratched behind its ears. Unable to resist, Paul gently lifted the puppy from the cage. The little one snuggled into his arms and promptly fell asleep against his chest. But Paul's heart ached for the rest of them. They needed to be saved, and fast. Paul quickly called the RSPCA, explaining the situation and urging them to send a rescue team as soon as possible. While he waited, Paul couldn't stop worrying about the puppies. The cage had been sitting in the sun for who knew how long, and some of the pups were clearly struggling. He dragged the cage into the shade and retrieved a bottle of water from his car, doing his best to give the puppies something to drink by cupping his hands to offer water. A few of the pups lapped up the water eagerly, but others remained motionless, too weak to respond. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the rescue team arrived. Paul watched as the team carefully began removing the puppies from the cage, one by one. The puppies were in worse shape than Paul had realized. They were dehydrated, weak, and some of them were barely moving. As the rescuers worked, Paul counted along with them 14 males and 6 females, a total of 20 terrified, malnourished puppies. The team worked quickly, loading the pups into smaller crates and into the vehicle for transport. But one puppy, in particular, caught Paul's eye, the little black pup that had snuggled into his arms earlier. Paul had carried the puppy to the rescue vehicle himself, and as he placed it inside, his heart ached at the thought of parting with the little one. The last puppy to be removed from the cage was in the worst condition. The tiny female was groaning softly, clearly in pain. The team handled her with extreme care, placing her in a crate where she could be monitored closely during the ride to the vet. The rescue team had a lot of questions. The puppies appeared to be a mix of poodle crosses, likely cockapoos, and they were all clean, without any signs of fleas or parasites. It was strange to find such valuable puppies abandoned like this. Could it be that they were rejected from a puppy farm for being male? Or were they abandoned because of a potential disease outbreak, such as parvovirus? The rescuers didn't have any answers, but they knew they had to get the puppies to the vet immediately to assess their condition. Once at the vet's office, the puppies were given fluids to combat their severe dehydration. While the team feared that the puppies might be carrying a deadly illness, they were relieved to find that most of the pups began to show signs of improvement after receiving treatment. Unfortunately, the last little female puppy wasn't so lucky. Her condition was much more severe. Scans revealed that she had several congenital issues, including malformed lungs and missing ribs. There was nothing the vets could do to save her, and they had to make the difficult decision to euthanize her to prevent further suffering. Despite the heartbreak of losing one puppy, there was a sense of relief among the rescuers as the remaining 19 puppies grew stronger. The team believed that these puppies had come from 2 separate litters, given the differences in size and breed. But no matter their origins, they were all fighters. They were survivors. Paul couldn't get the puppies out of his mind. He returned to the vet's office a few days later to check on their progress, and to his surprise and delight, the little black puppy immediately ran to him, tail wagging furiously. The head of the rescue team was there as well, and seeing the bond between Paul and the puppy, she had an idea. She asked Paul if he would be willing to foster some of the puppies, giving them a temporary home until they were ready for adoption. Paul didn't hesitate. He agreed to take the black puppy, now named Hank, along with 2 others, Caleb and Luna. As Paul took the puppies home, he felt a mixture of joy and responsibility. He was determined to help them grow stronger and to provide them with the love and care they had been denied in their early days. The puppies were still nervous around humans, but with patience and gentle attention, they slowly began to trust Paul and his family. Meanwhile, the RSPCA launched an investigation into the abandonment of the puppies. They appealed to the public for any information that could lead to the culprits, and soon, a truck driver came forward with footage from his dashcam. The video showed a van parked on the side of the road in the early morning, right where the puppies had been found. The van's license plate was clearly visible, and the investigation took a major step forward. However, the case took a surprising turn. The van had been reported stolen just days before the puppies were found. The owners of the van were a family who had fostered dogs, and they had recently taken in 3 pregnant females who had given birth to large litters. The puppies in the van were from these litters, but before the family could take them to the vet for their shots, the van was stolen at gunpoint. The family had been devastated, fearing for the lives of the puppies, and had no idea they had been found until the investigators contacted them. Though the original foster family was overjoyed to learn that most of the puppies had survived, they were grateful to Paul and the other foster families who had stepped in to care for them. The family did not ask for the puppies to be returned, allowing them to stay with their new caregivers. Paul, in particular, was thrilled. He had grown attached to Hank, and now he knew that Hank would be a permanent part of his family. As time went on, the puppies thrived in their foster homes. They were vaccinated, socialized, and prepared for adoption. Many of the foster families, including Paul, decided to officially adopt the puppies they had cared for. Hank became Paul's loyal companion, and every day, Paul looked at him and felt immense gratitude for that moment of curiosity that had led him to stop by the side of the road. The search for the person who had stolen the van and abandoned the puppies never turned up any leads, but the outcome was a happy one for most of the puppies. They had been given a second chance at life, and they were now thriving in loving homes. Paul often thought about how close he had come to driving past without stopping that day. It was a decision that had changed his life, and he knew that Hank, along with Caleb and Luna, would be with him for the rest of their lives. Paul's story became a testament to the power of small actions and how they can make a world of difference. What started as a random decision to turn around and check out a shiny object on the side of the road had led to the rescue of 20 helpless puppies. It was a reminder that sometimes following your curiosity can lead to something far greater than you could ever imagine.